Hello. Editing Ben here, and I decided to push this recorded episode up in my queue so I could just get into May for Mental Health Awareness Month. If you haven't already, please watch Morgan Lee, Barrett Laurie, and Lauren Adele's individual videos as they open up and discuss this critical topic. I'll include links for each of their videos in the description below. On a lighter note, I am looking for ARC readers and a street team. I am on track to publish my debut novel, Falling Through, this summer, which means I'm planning to get it out in July. Working backwards, I would like to get the ARC copies to the various readers in mid-June timeframe so that they can get done with it by mid-July. The novel is roughly 96,000 words and follows Derek on the day that he reveals to his best friend Tracy that he can move objects with his mind. The demonstration goes awry and he nearly kills her, which creates a monster. That monster hunts him and ultimately leads Derek and his friends on a journey across time. This is a story of learning to live with mistakes and fighting to regain everything the heroes have lost. As added incentives, I have prizes for those who help me promote my work, from stickers to bookmarks to magnets. Please just message me if you're interested in being on the ARC and street teams. And now on to tonight's episode about setbacks. Hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. At the time of this recording, my query requests have been trickling in, and thus far they've all been rejections. I'm not disappointed in those results, as my story doesn't have the largest appeal. It's not politically, socially, or romantically charged like what the agents were primarily asking for. Those are certainly involved in my stories, but I didn't lean hard into the trends, tropes, and specific types of stories that they were looking for. Instead, I wrote a story that I would want to read. As far as the query responses go, I'm more disappointed in the generic language in those responses. 2 responses from 2 different agents at different companies were near verbatim. I would have preferred to have a list of issues within the early parts of the story, or specific things to work on, or problems within the promotional material. All this means is that I'll be moving forward with my own timeline so that I can self-publish this summer. All that prologue to say that today's episode is all about setbacks, rejections, and picking yourself back up after minor IT band issues. Way back in episode 1, I described how a running injury led to me not writing as many words as I wanted to. My 2 seemingly unrelated hobbies were building off each other, and thus the idea for Running to Write was created. Well, it's that time of year again. Last week, the temperatures rose and fell by 30 degrees each day for 4 days in a row. That completely throws off my body's rhythm and sets me up for injuries. Also, I never cut back on my mileage after having a really strong start to the year. There's a reason why annually at the springtime, my knees hurt a lot. When I'm running, especially at this time of year, I'm careful not to step badly so that I don't trigger my old IT band injury, or twist an ankle so that the pain is the only thing I can think about. In much the same way when writing, we should anticipate harsh criticisms. Every author has received scathing reviews, many of which include personal attacks because people can be terrible. As both a runner and a writer, I've had to deal with pain and discomfort. During a race, it may make sense to stop, evaluate the damage, and then stretch to try and resolve the problem. In writing, that means consider what the feedback comments mean and how they can be incorporated to improve the manuscript. Bouncing back to running, I prefer to run when it's cold because I don't like dripping in sweat. Cold weather can also limit the pain I feel in my knees. However, what's actually happening is that the pain is being numbed by the cold. That's obviously not good and leads to me having to put a hot pack on my knee for the rest of the day. In the same way for your writing, bad feedback, by that I mean non-constructive negative feedback, can be useless at best or mean-spirited at worst. On the other hand, constructive negative feedback can pinpoint issues and hopefully get them resolved before the novel gets published. How can we transform negative comments and reviews into actionable items to fix our stories? Here are my 5 tips to overcoming setbacks. Number 1, open up a conversation, if appropriate. This primarily deals with beta readers and critique partners, as you do not want to confront anybody who gives you an open and honest bad review. Ask the beta reader for more details about the issue. If they are picking apart a specific scene, then try and figure out what the underlying problem is and maybe work with them to resolve it. After fixing the problem, ask the beta reader if they'd be willing to reread the section. Be mindful of their time though, and I would consider this a one-time thing. Beta readers may not be able to express or properly convey exactly what they don't like in a scene. They may be able to identify that they don't like a specific scene, which is important in itself, but only through opening up a conversation can you figure out exactly where the problem is. When things in a story don't work, expect a beta reader to comment on them. That's a good thing. I want to know if there's a plot hole or if a description is confusing. So I would then want to ask that beta reader to expand on their comments. And so hopefully we can come to a conclusion together and fix whatever's bothering them. Pain during a run is your body's way of telling you that something is wrong. It might mean that you've been pushing yourself too hard or that you didn't warm up properly. Once you feel that pain, it needs to bring about a change so that it doesn't lead to an injury that knocks you out of a given run. I wish my body were like a beta reader and could tell me exactly where a problem is. I know I've made minor injuries much worse by misinterpreting what's going on within my muscles. Number 2, know that you are not an imposter. Another common setback is self-doubt. I frequently doubt my skills and the content I create. There is no universal solution for my imposter syndrome. It is an individual battle that I constantly fight. All I can suggest is that you find a supportive group. Start with your family, your friends, your significant other. If they're a part of the problem or aren't as supportive as you need, then keep looking until you find someone to cheer you on. Look, I love my parents, but I probably won't go to them for writing support until after I publish my book. My mom will want to help out as much as she can, but the story isn't something she'd be interested in, so any feedback she gave would likely feed my self-doubts. However, the second I push publish, I know my mom will be going to her friends' kids, her friends' kids' families, her friends' kids' families' neighbors, and trying to talk to them about my book. My point is to find the help you need and want, rather than try to fit people into specific molds. Also, when imposter syndrome hits me hard, I will read the 1 or 2 sections within my story that I know are fantastic. Or I'll focus on where I want to take the story and maybe not where it is right now. No matter what method you use to fight your personal battle, by starting your writing journey, whatever stage you're at, know that you are not an imposter. I want you to say it with me now. I am not an imposter. I'll wait. Number 3, keep going. Here, the running and writing advice diverge greatly. When a running injury is about to occur, the solution is to do less. When I can feel my joints and muscles about to be injured, I need to run at a slower pace, run a shorter distance, or skip the run altogether to avoid permanent injury. For writing, we don't need to stop because of a setback or a bad review. Aside from pride, there is nothing to heal. In fact, writing more strengthens that skill through practice. There will always be reasons not to write, and I will always make mistakes when doing so. The trick is to work past and through them. One of my biggest mistakes was to let some bad reviews and comments slip me out of my regular writing sessions. That made getting back into the habit much more difficult. Change your mindset to make the bad feedback the reason you write instead of the reason you falter. For a while, I was fueled by spite to prove that bad feedback was wrong. It's not the best motivation, nor is it healthy, but for a temporary solution, it got me back on track to meeting my goals. Never let those comments escalate to become the reason you stop writing. How do you do this? Number 4, stay positive. Negative reviews and harsh criticisms still mean that someone took time out of their busy schedule to start and possibly finish reading our novels. Personal attacks aside, I am suspicious of books that don't have 1-star reviews. So if you have bad reviews for your books, I'm more likely to read them. In most cases where my chapters were ripped apart, I agreed with the criticisms. Though frustrated with myself and my works, I still use that information to improve my writing and my drafts. So turn whatever negative criticisms you're receiving into a positive to improve. Even for published work, you can still improve your skills or fix those problems in your future novels. And lastly, number 5, ignore it. Maybe. Right, wrong, or otherwise, everyone has their own opinions. I had a paragraph which a beta reader absolutely adored, and that same paragraph was despised by a completely different beta reader. That means I needed to decide which beta reader to agree with and which to ignore. Moreover, you may have written a captivating plot with beautiful purple prose, yet a character within the story could remind the reader of someone they hate. These minor coincidences could skew the reader's enjoyment of the novel, whether they realize it or not. Such tiny moments can escalate and lead to the reader putting the book down through no fault of the author. Readers may also miss subtle moments or not get the point of specific character motivations, which is why it helps to get numerous beta readers. If an overwhelming number make the same comment though, I wouldn't ignore it. Even if a relatively small portion of reviewers make a similar comment, I would still consider that to be an issue which may need to be resolved. You as the writer though need to decide what can be ignored or what needs to be addressed. Obviously, if the reader is an expert in what's being described or their sensitivity reader being misrepresented by characters in your story, then take their comments at face value and work to resolve them. As a bonus to my 5 tips on overcoming setbacks, I'll include an often overlooked tip to prevent a setback from occurring by saving often and saving on multiple sources. One of the worst feelings as a writer is to have chapters or pages disappear. Files get overwritten, notes get lost, whatever the reason, it sucks when it happens. Ideas are easily forgotten, so when I fried my computer's hard drive, I was never able to fully reconstruct the chapters I had lost. That is the main reason I back up on my work on an encrypted thumb drive every hour at the end of a chapter, or especially at the end of the day. Plus, at monthly intervals, I'll push everything into the cloud. Those are 5 ways I've managed to keep running on my writing path despite the setbacks and roadblocks thrown in my way. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. Help me get that positive feedback by pressing those like and subscribe buttons. Let me know in those comments how you defeat those feelings of imposter syndrome. Do you agree with my opinions, or is everything I said wrong? I post my running and writing progress on Instagram and Twitter as Running to Write, so be sure to follow me and join in with your own thoughts. See you next time. Until then, overcome whatever setbacks are holding you back, or let us all know what you're facing so that we as a writing community can support you.